This is Jennifer Palamas from Charlotte, North Carolina, and this is Barbecue Central.
Happy to have you aboard here for the Really Big Barbecue Show.
Boing.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me.
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude!
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 2 feet for wiener.
But listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour. It is the Barbecue Central Show, where we talk about the most important things happening in the world of barbecue and grilling. And in this second hour, we are breaking format largely because we are pretty much racing right to the hotline, where we welcome in a new Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer, class of 2025. What some consider to be the most successful and most feared barbecue competitor ever to grace the KCBS competition circuit. Has he won competitions? Too many to count. Has he won majors? Pretty much all of them. Is he a Hall of Famer? You know it. A Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer has given some of the most incredible interviews in the show's history, especially as it relates to competition barbecue. It's our pal, Travis Clark. Hey, Travis.
What's up, Greg?
We have a YouTube poll question of the week, and I'm not pandering to the guest crowd here, but the question is this. Did we get the 2025 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Fame class correct last week?
I feel like it's a solid list. I was super surprised Melissa Cookston wasn't always in. I always hold her up pretty freaking high in my books. But.
And a great interview as well. So,
yeah.
To qualify for the Guest Hall of Fame, you have only needed to have guested one time in your entire life. You're automatically eligible. And then we just hope we continue to amass the brain trust that can actually reach back into the analog or the archives of the show to be able to go out and pick some good ones. But,
the thing is, you're always going to have a hell of a list of people you could always put in.
Oh, yeah.
I think you could ask 100 people and you're going to get 100 different answers.
Well, Travis Clark was high in regard here on this. You were definitely one that was put in by everybody. Everybody knows a Travis Clark. Everybody knows the interviews that you were given. So we're going to roll it all the way back. And when we were sound checking yesterday, I said, we're not rolling it back to when did Travis Clark get into barbecue. We're rolling it back to when was Travis Clark born and where was Travis Clark born?
Oh, we're going way back.
The Wayback Machine.
The Wayback. Well, I was born in 1980 in Dodge City, Kansas. Little bitty town. I actually lived in Cimarron, little town next to it, about 1,800 people. Born and raised until I moved down here to Oklahoma pretty much. I pretty much lived there my whole life.
Only kid, or did you have brothers and sisters?
I have one brother. He's 5 years younger than me. Not near as good looking, but I mean, it's, what do you do? Can't all be that way.
Good sibling relationship with him, like growing up, all that stuff?
Yeah, I think, I think so. We got way better as we got older, actually. I think we became way better. I was never much of a family guy. I was always kind of a troublemaker and did my own thing, but he, being 5 years different in school, we wasn't in school at the same time or nothing like that. But as we've got older, we're much closer. Yeah.
What was family like for you growing up before high school?
I pretty much grew up with my grandpa, my mom's dad out there. I grew up on the farm out there. It's where I learned to cook and everything. I grew up out there. My dad was kind of a piece of shit, so I didn't really spend a ton of time at home, as little as possible, I guess. And then my mom, she got a divorce, and I pretty much just lived out there at my grandpa's mostly. I loved being on the farm. It was great. Fucking loved it.
Do you have a connection with your dad at all at this point?
No,
or is that
no, God, no. Yeah. Never has happened. Never will.
Regret it
never
all?
will. No, fuck no. Hell no. I can't stand the guy. I mean, not at all. It's zero. it's one of those, he's reached out and wanted to see my kids. My kids got no use for him either. It's not a good deal. Never will be.
Yeah.
But hey, all that shit happens for a reason. Makes me a better dad. It shows you what not to do.
What did you like best about being on the farm? Was it just space? Was it being alone and up to your own devices?
Even in school, I've never been one that could just sit somewhere. I was really good in school. I just hated being sitting in a fucking room. Goddamn, I'd have to just try to get out of it. I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. And then I'd walk into the shop class and hang out. I couldn't sit in a room very long. I don't know what that is, but I just couldn't do it, and they'd talk about the same thing. And I'd be like, tell me why the hell I need to dissect a sentence. Where will I do this in real life? And when they could never, ever explain that to you that you would, it's like, yeah, I don't need to know this. I mean, it's just not my thing, and I grew up fighting, got thrown out of high school when I was about 16, became a master electrician.
You didn't finish high school?
Life. No, God, no.
Like GED or not even that?
I got a GED. I got an opportunity to work for a guy. His name was Roger Davis, had a big electrical company in the town we were in. It's a small town, 1,800 people, but Roger employed 100 and some electricians, in that one little town. He had the biggest still does, biggest electrical company in Southwest Kansas. He reached out to me. He's like, why don't you come work for me? And I was like, nah, I don't think so. I kind of liked farming. I loved that. And he's like, this is something you could do the rest of your life, and it's like, all right, so I went to work for him, and I think I worked there probably a year or so. And Roger made a bet with me. He's like, you're not dumb. He's like, why didn't you ever get your GED? And I was like, what do I need that for? And he's like, I'll pay you X amount. I can't remember what it was. He goes, if you can go get it. And I was like, all right. So I took off and went and got the thing and passed it with flying colors. And hell, then you got scholarship offers and everything else. I'm like, the last thing I'm doing is going to school. I ended up getting my electrical license and doing that forever. And then had my own electrical business for a long time. And one of my best customers was One Oak, which is an oil gas company. And then they wanted me to go to work for them directly. So I did that. And I did it for a long time. And that's what moved us to Oklahoma, honestly.
So you were working or you started as like an apprenticeship program for Roger then?
No, started working. I mean, my first day I worked was in a packing house. Went to a beef packing plant my very first day. You just started hauling, you were hauling all the pipe in and hauling all the wire in to learning how to do it. And then it just got better and better. And hell, in, a few years I was running my own jobs.
Wow.
So it was just easy to me. It is always, I loved it. I loved figuring out the controls, but I was always a hands-on guy. Like when I was in school, I loved the shop class. I had Mrs. Roberts and Mr. Sinclair. They were both shop teachers that were just very influential in my life to this day. I mean, they were just people that, you can still, I could figure out any math thing, in my head. And, and then the math class, they're like, well, how'd you get to that? I was like, I don't know. I was like, this is the answer. And they were like, well, you got to show your work. And Sinclair's like, well, how'd you come up with that in shop class? And I was like, well, I took this and did this and rounded this. And then I deducted it back off. And he's like, you and that Jew math, Clark, my teacher, he always called it Jew math. And I was like, I don't know. It just works, man. It's how I can do it in my head. And I could rattle it off in my head, but I couldn't put it on paper. And if I did, they'd look at it and go, well, that don't make sense. I don't know how you got that answer. But I was like, look, I don't know. This is how I do it. I was super smart, but they were great. Then he let me be like an assistant in the shop and go and help. And then I was going in at nights and they'd have like woodworking classes, like a woman's night. They'd come in on Wednesday nights and build stuff and I'd get to go in and help do that. And I just loved working on stuff. I didn't care if it was cars. I didn't care if I was building gun cabinets or tables. I just liked doing stuff, and I just couldn't sit in a room. I just couldn't do it. I'd rather go sweep a shop than sit in an air conditioned room. I couldn't do it.
Do you think if you were in school today, because of, all the considerations and allotments they make for students, given your what appears to be high intellect, that you would have been a more successful student in 25 than you were in, 86 or 88?
I don't think so. I can't. To this day, I can't sit still in my manager meetings. I have my own restaurant. I just can't. I can't do nothing. It's so bad. I just don't know what it is. Drives my wife crazy some days. I just can't do it. But I have a brilliant mind in my own way. I just can't sit somewhere and it's like, we could be doing this. We're getting ready to go to a brand conference and I'm like, oh man, this is painful. Where do you sit through meetings and stuff? I can't do it. My kids, luckily, I have some great, very, very smart kids that do super great in school, and it's just, it wasn't my thing. I was very smart, but I just can't sit there. I mean, I just can't do it.
Is it important for you knowing what you went through that they are successful in school, or because you knew, but you found a way to not have to do school, I mean, at all, and then still be successful at being a successful electrician. So for them,
I've always,
because you've seen, okay, a lot of people probably went to school, did the college thing, successful, but you very successful in your own right, getting kicked out of high school. So you've seen success both sides of it.
Yeah. I told all my kids, I was like, you never have to go to college, ever. If you want to, I will put you through school. And I told them all, I was like, if you go to college, I'll buy you a vehicle, everything like that. You get a vehicle in high school, but I said, you go to college and do that. I said, it's yours. Everything's yours. I'll pay for it all and do it all. It's been, and my kids have all done well. They all graduated. And I was like, I don't care what it takes, but you will graduate high school. No matter what, I'll sit there with you. I mean, as much as that'll pain me, it was very important because I had to work extremely hard to get to that point. I had, Mrs. Smalls was a math teacher I had, and she told me, she's like, I don't know what the hell you're going to do in life, but whatever you do, you're going to be successful at it. She's like, you're one of the smartest kids in here. You just won't do it. And I'm like, because I don't need to do this. I mean, I think if they could explain to me why you have to do this, why I have to do this, I'd figure it out. But I'm like, they make calculators for a reason. They make this for, tell me anybody that diagrams a sentence. Explain that to me and then I'll learn it. And I liked history, but I liked American history. I liked the stuff like that. Well, then they'd start talking about these wars across seasons. I was like, I don't give a shit. I didn't care. If it didn't involve America, I didn't care. I have no desire to leave the country. I mean, I love America. And they were like, well, you need to learn this. I was like, why? Why do I need to know it? It just, if it involved America, I was in on it. And if it didn't, I didn't care. And I don't know. I never could. To this day, I don't care. I'll be watching the History Channel. It can be a million days of something and I'll watch it. But if they break off and go to Canada, I do not care.
No interest in sports or anything like that?
I like football. I can't watch a baseball game or a basketball game if my life depended on it. I just, I watched some of the Thunder in the final because it was local for us. Don't really have a team. I mean, I liked watching what was local. I love watching football. I don't love the Packers game. I just went to the Packers-Cowboys game that ended in a tie. That was not awesome. Professional sports shouldn't end in a tie.
So then you probably hate soccer.
I've never watched it in my life. Right. My nephew is very, very good in soccer, actually, but we would actually want to go watch him play, but he's a very talented soccer player.
Dialing it back just a little bit on the farm, what was the food scene like for you back then?
My grandpa, we made a lot of food. Some of it's influenced on my menu. I have a knuckle sandwich on there, which is, it's ham and bacon and pimento cheese on it. We'd make it out on the farm once in a while, and you never knew what you were going to get. My grandpa was like, you want a knuckle sandwich? He didn't know if he was getting ready to pop you in the arm or make you a sandwich. So, I mean, it's on my menu. And I still tell the people to this day, we almost put hockey pucks on there because my grandpa would burn anything on a grill. Everything was burnt. I mean, that's how I started cooking. He would burn them, and I'd always complain. I'm like, God, it's crunchy, it's dry. And he's like, well, you don't like it, cook it yourself. So I did. Started cooking them myself. And then my uncle was like, well, you cook the burgers and you cook the steaks. So I started doing it. Back then, the only seasoning we had in the whole place was, Lowry seasoned salt, salt and pepper. It was about all we had, but I mean, I started cooking at a young age. I mean, I don't even know. And then a guy right down the road has a big whole hog party every year. Ed Legg, he's a fantastic guy. He passed away several years ago, but they still keep on the tradition of having that whole hog party. And I can remember at a young age, my grandpa taking me over there and they were prepping that whole hog. And I was like, this is freaking cool. We raised hogs, cattle. We did it all ourselves and butchered them all. But, watching it done that way, I had never seen a hog cooked that way. We'd always cooked them in the ground, and threw coals on them, so then seeing it in a pit, I was like, man, this is sweet, and they'd fill it up with all the cabbage and carrots and potatoes and just stuff that thing full, and it was amazing. And the whole town would come out. I mean, there, of a town of 1,800 people, there's probably 400 or 500 people out there. Wow. It was just a super cool thing, which is a tradition we're going to start doing next year at our farm. We want to do the same thing. So
So,
Yeah, super
so
cool.
no college. You do.
No.
You're doing electrician, and you're
Yeah.
being successful at it. You got your own business. You go to work for One Oak. So,
Yeah.
where does professional electrician and barbecue start to work its way into each other?
So when I started working for One Oak, you had a lot of weekends off, which was very rare. You were on a rotating schedule. When I was an electrician, weekends off were just not an option. That's when you made all your money in the packing house. It's the only time they were closed, so I'd never, ever had weekends off. So I started working for One Oak, and I'm sitting here going, man, I got 4 or 5 days off in a row. I was like, this is crazy. A good friend of mine in high school, she her grandparents lived next door to us, and they would come down and spend the whole summers. Super cool friends, twin girls. They were super cool. But one of them had kidney problems, and she had a kidney transplant in, I guess it would have been 2011. I think it was when we went to Kansas City, and we did the kidney walk for her up there because I had time off. Took the kids and everybody. We went up there. And I'd never really thought much about competition barbecue. A guy I worked with at One Oak catered a lot, cooked a lot of barbecue, and had some cool stuff. And he had done some competitions locally there and everything. And I was like, that'd be fun, and I'd thought about it. Well, when we went and did that kidney walk, we were walking around and you could smell barbecue. And I was like, I need to live in this town. I mean, it was just amazing. I was like, this town always smell like this, And they were like, no, the American Royal's going on. That was when the Royal was down in the bottoms.
Yep.
And where we were doing the walk wasn't far from there. So you could smell 600 teams cooking. And I was like, man, that's super cool. And everybody's telling me, they're like, hey, it's the Royal. It's, you can go down there, you can eat, you can do this. And I was like, well, we'll do that tomorrow before we go home. So that Sunday, me and Kim took the kids. Kids were pretty little. We were dragging them around in a wagon. So we went to the Royal and walked around. And, this was back when Pitmasters was on, so, I'd seen it on TV, not really watching it, but I mean, I'd seen it and watched it some. I'm not a big TV watcher. And but then I met Rod Gray there, walked up to him. He was outside, and his green pit is what caught my eye, honestly. I was like, now that's a badass pit. That J5 he has that everybody knows, I own that now. But that pit, I was like, oh man, I want that thing. Like, I want that pit. And we walked by it a couple of times, and then he was out there, and I was like, I like your pit. And he's like, thank you. He's like, do this and that. And Rod was super gracious and talked to me and everything. And gave us a t-shirt, and he's like, I was like, this is cool. And I was like, your pit's awesome. He's like, well, there's another one down the aisle. Johnny Trigg is right over here. There's a really cool one right down this aisle over here. It's True Bud Barbecues. So we walked around, and at the time I'm into car shows and motorcycles. And I was looking for something to do with the kids, because I used to always go to Sturgis on my bike. Well, when you get little kids, that's not a kid scene, So I was trying to think of things to do. We had campers and stuff, and I was trying to think of, what you could do. And I'm looking at all these people in their campers, and their kids are running up and down the aisles on scooters and having fun. I was like, well, this is it. I could do this. And we went inside and ate, and the barbecue sucked. And I at the time I was thinking, this is the food these guys are cooking. I didn't understand, that they turned in different food, but we're eating this, and, and they're putting it in these same styrofoam containers, and we're watching containers go in. And I'm like, well, this shit sucks. I was like, we can cook better food than this. Well, it wasn't competition food, it was whoever was catering, in there, and we pay, $50, $60 for all this food. And I'm like, my God, we could come do this and be better than all these guys if this is what they're turning in, None of that was what they were turning in. I didn't know then, it was a vendor, but we walked around, and I'm like, look, I want one of these. I want to buy a Jambo, and I'm talking to guys, and they're like, that's like 10 grand. I'm like, well, I'm probably still gonna need to buy one. I'm like, I'll sell a bike. I'll do something. I want one of these. So we were leaving that thing. Finally, we walked around. We spent a good time of the day there. We were driving home, and my mom called, and she's like, what are you doing this weekend? I said, well, we come up to Kansas City, did the kidney walk for Jenny, and did all this. Then we went and walked around the Royal, and I was like, it was super badass. And she goes, we got talking, and she's like, would you go by yourself, or did you take the whole crew? And I said, I took the whole crew. And, I kind of was thinking about that while I'm on the phone with my mom. We get done. She's like, all right, holler when you get back. And I hung up the phone. I looked over at Kim. I was like, our team name is going to be Clark Crew. right there. I mean, we're 2 hours down the road. Don't own a smoker. I don't own anything. I mean, I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I got back home and I had grills. I was always had Weber's, and I mean, any barbecue I cooked, I just put my coals off on one side and then, cooked on Weber's is what I did. Still have the same Weber, and I was like, this is cool. So then I bought a smoker, bought one of them propane assist, the cabinets,
Yep.
And I was like, that's all right. I was putting wood chunks in it. And then I welded up a basket to hold more wood chunks over this electric deal, so I could get more smoke, and was doing this. And then the guy I worked with, he's like, well, if you're wanting to really get into it, we have a smoker, we have one that we'd sell. Him and another guy in town, can't remember his name, but they were partners on a catering business. Kyle did that on the side on his days off. And I was like, well, let me look at it. I went and looked at the thing, and they're like $3,500. It's one on a trailer. And I was like, all right. So I talked to Kim, and she's like, all right. And I was like, I really want a Jambo. And she's like, what do those cost? I'm like, you can find used ones, $6,000-$7,000 and more, and she's like, can't we just start, cheaper and see if you like it? And I was like, all right. And we kind of made the deal. If I win a contest, then I could get a Jambo. So I spent that whole winter working on that pit, building it to what I thought a Jambo was. I cut the firebox. We had a great shop out there at One Oak that we could use, with welders and everything. So we went through, and my uncle helped me some. We put a new firebox on it, insulated firebox, did all the things that I thought how a Jambo was, built the same. You'd seen enough pictures online, you were like, okay, this is how it works and this is what it does. And really, I built it pretty freaking close. I made one very crucial mistake on it that if I could have redone, it probably would have been a really badass pit. But I won my third contest, and then I immediately bought a Jambo. And I was looking for one. I put on the page, looking for a Jambo, want one. And Wade Reeder, who's a good friend of mine, I don't know if you know him. There's no place like smoke up in Missouri.
Yeah.
He's the guy he's ran the pit at almost every one of my classes ever since, and a great friend of mine. He's a great cook. He's a car salesman, so he's got me on this damn thing. He's like, well, I got to have, I think it was $6,500 for it. And he's like, but I got a lot of people looking, I can't say it'll be here next week. And at the time I was working nights. We had like a rotating schedule. And I'm like, man, I could get up there, I don't get off until I think it was Friday night. I think Friday at 7 a.m. or whatever. I guess it would be Saturday at 7 a.m. in the morning. So I turned around and drove straight home. I went home, took a shower, and drove 7 hours or something straight after working all night long. I was so tired. Loaded my oldest daughter up, drove up, bought this Jambo. Then turned around and went to a Chiefs game, and then drove home. Wade's a car salesman. He probably didn't have anybody else looking at that thing, but he's, car salesman. He's like, oh, that sumbitch probably won't be here. It's a lot of people looking at it. I've heard him do the same pitch on 50 trailers now, but it's, so I went and got it. Still have it to this day. Still have that pit. And the cool thing is I sold that first pit that I had. And I always kind of wanted it back. Once we got good, I missed it.
The one you made.
I didn't. The one we built. Yeah.
Yep.
It was one we converted, put the firebox and just changed a bunch of things. It was a super cool pit. I always kind of wanted it back. I think once you got good, at the time, I never even thought about it. I'm like, I'm getting a Jambo. Who cares? I couldn't afford two pits. There was no way I could, and I, once we got good, I was like, man, I'd like to have that pit back. And I actually found it and just bought it back actually about probably 2 months ago now.
How much you pay for it?
And I've got, I did some trading for it. I really probably only have a few grand in it.
Yeah.
Actually, the guy was wanting a lot, but I traded him a brand new Yoder pellet pit and some money or whatever for it. But I got it back and I took it to a shop here in town. And I'm like, look, I know what I did wrong. And I showed them the things. I was like, I want this changed. I want this changed. And they're a fabrication shop. And I was like, and I want it nice. Yep. Like I want it flawless. I want everything. The door always had a little bit of a bend on it. It didn't sit right. I was like, I want that taken off, re-rolled. I want new hinges. I want this. I want this counterweight, change this. I mean, I gave them a list of everything and they're a great shop and they build really nice pits anyway. Some like custom one-off pits that people do. The guy's super great. you know, and I actually sponsor his son as one of the teams we sponsor. He didn't do a lot. He does some catering and stuff, but just great people. And he's like, man, absolutely. You know, we're honored to do it. And I was like, no hurry. I haven't had this thing in 10 years. I don't care. I was like, take your time. I just want it perfect, you know? So my goal with it, now that we got it back, is I want to use it when we go do a lot of these charity cooks. We cook for homeless and anything, Cancer Society, fundraisers. We do it all the time. And I'm like, I want to do all that stuff on my first pit. I was like, I think that'd just be super cool because it's big. It's a lot bigger and has like a big rib box on it. You can cook a lot of food on it. And then I want to get into the tradition of having a big barbecue out at our land every year and make sure we use that pit. I think it'll just be super cool.
What about the other ones? Like you said, you had Rod Gray's green pit. What do you do with that?
Oh yeah. Keep it. I cook, I do some stuff for the PBR, like Professional Bull Riding, when they're in town, because they got it in their logo. So it's been on TV a few times. We've done some things and like news things or whatever, you know, publicity stuff. You know, it's a super cool thing, but I just wanted it. I mean, it was the pit that I literally looked at and was like, holy shit, I want to get into this. And I always wanted it. And Rod always told me, he's like, you know, if I ever sell it, you'll be the first guy I call. And I always told him, I was like, well, if you die, I'm going to buy it from Sherry for what you told her it cost you. And he's like, how do you know I didn't tell her what it really cost? But he actually called me one day and said, I'm going to sell it. And I was like, you for real? And we bought it on the agreement that if I ever did sell it, it would 100% go back to him. But I hope to never sell it. I love it. I actually want to get it repainted and, you know, back to the same green and everything. It's got some rock chips in it, but it's just a super, super cool pit, you know? So I have that, and I still have my original Jambo, and I've got my original J3, my first one that I bought also. So I've got one of everything. And then I have two of the ones still that go on the back of trailers. I still have two of those. You know, everything that I ever really won anything on, I still have.
I remember Joe Davidson told me that, you know, when he was originally making Oklahoma Joe's, you know, it was a way different pit than, you know, when they ended up selling it and started to go Chinese manufacturing.
Yeah, I have one of the original ones.
So he's gone back and started buying all of his original ones back. So he's got a barn full of original Oklahoma Joe's. So if you're ever looking to offload that one, you know, I'm sure he'd be happy to buy it.
You know, it was one of my first offsets. While I was learning, you know, while we were building that big one, I started kind of like cooking on it. We were taking it to work and cooking like pork loins on it, things that not competition, you know, we were just cooking stuff on it, you know, and eating it every day out there. We're just cooking on it a lot. But I mean, it's not like the ones, you know, you hear people now say the new ones are like junk. And I'm like, I'm telling you, when Joe was building them and them, I was, it ain't that way. I was like, this thing's the real deal. I mean, it'd take 4 guys to load that thing. It's the real deal.
So you get into the competition barbecue scene. You said you won the 3rd contest.
Yeah.
When do you know?
Super cool.
When do you know you're becoming good? Like I would imagine you get in, you do enough contests, maybe you're going to knock one down if you're decent. You know, let's call it the blind squirrel kind of a thing. But when do you know you're getting good?
I didn't really understand a lot about barbecue, how it was. I remember my first contest that we won was Lamar, Colorado, which is where my grandpa and grandma were originally from, my great grandma and grandpa, and then my mom was born out there. That was the first contest I won, but Johnny Trigg was at it. You know, and there was a lot of really good teams at it, but at the time, you know, again, watching Pitmasters, you know, Johnny Trigg was the man, you know, and I remember thinking, no matter what, I'm going to turn in on every table with this guy. Knowing how barbecue is, I have no clue if my food went on the table. I ran up there every time, like we waited. And then we'd see it and we're like, oh, Johnny's going. And we'd take our food up there, you know, because I wanted to be on there with the best, you know, and at the time, I mean, Johnny was a legend, still is, great guy, love him to death, you know, and I was just like, that's who I want to be on there with. And we won that contest. And I can remember we got a call on pretty much everything. And I remember him going, well, who the hell is that? You know, who the hell is Clark Crew Barbecue? And I was like, that's me, you know, and I mean, you know, that's me, you know, and then I won that thing. And he goes, I can't believe you won this damn thing. And he said, this is your 3rd time? I said, yep, it is. And he says, man, he goes, if you can do that again, he goes, you might be a somebody, you know? And I was thinking, all right, you know, and I mean, I consistently got better. You know, I mean, my next contest was a little better and a little better. I mean, I was just learning the things.
We're doing classes.
You know, and I mean, no. Hell, I mean, I didn't know anything about it then. I had took Rod Gray's class, you know, before, but I didn't know. When I took that, I didn't even own a smoker. You know, I mean, and I really didn't know what to go in there for. I mean, I wish I could have took it again as you cooked and knew more. But hell, you didn't. He was so overwhelming. Rod gave so much information. I was sitting there like, holy shit. You know, I was writing everything down. And what was unique that I was probably the only guy in there. I mean, I was writing things down like, you know, he tears 6 paper tails off, places them in the right-hand corner of that with his knife. He uses that knife to cut these with. You know, I was writing all the steps down of like, shit, that makes sense why he did that. You know, I mean, it makes sense. As I got good, Rod allowed me to go back and run his pit at his classes. And I probably did that. I mean, I bet 15 times or more, probably. I mean, a bunch of times. And it got to be where I didn't like doing it anymore because we were really good at the time. The first year I was running for team of the year, I was still running Rod's pit at his class. We were number 1 team in the world and I was still doing it. And it was just a respect thing because I respected him so much, you know, because I truly don't think if it was for Rod taking the time to talk to me, I don't know if I'd ever got into this. You know, and I mean, and I love Sherry to death. I mean, hell, they got one of our bulldogs. I mean, it was just, you know, it was just a connection there, you know. So we did that, and it got disrespectful when people in the class were, well, what do you do, Travis? You know, what do you do, Travis? And I mean, to me, it never bothered Rod, I don't think, but I mean, to me, I just felt like it was disrespectful, you know. And I mean, I was just like, I don't want to be a sideshow with this thing, you know. Yep. And I mean, it's about him, you know, he's earned that, you know. So I was like, well, and Rod's like, you just need to do your own. And I'm like, oh, hell with that. You know, I mean, I've worked too hard to do my things. And I mean, because I was like, well, I do a lot of what Rod does, but I do a lot of weird shit, you know. And back then, I think I was one of the first guys doing chicken the way I was doing it, you know. I mean, because a lot of good cooks, I let them try it and they're like, what the fuck is that? You know, I mean, so I know my shit was different. But then it got to be when I wanted to start cooking a lot, you know, we won that 3rd contest. Then that qualified me to cook the Royal. That was my 10th contest, you know, and we got a good chicken call, 3rd or 4th, something like that. First place 180 brisket, you know, and reserved that thing behind Darren Worth. It was the first year Darren won it, you know, and I'm sitting here going for my 10th cook. And I was so fucking mad thinking, how the fuck did I lose by half a point? You know, I'm pissed. And everyone's like, dude, you reserved the Royal. I was like, who gives a fuck? You know, I mean, you're fucking first loser. And I mean, that is no disrespect to anybody, but I've never in my life went and cooked and didn't expect to win ever.
So where does
where
does this competitive streak come from? Like, I'm listening to your upbringing and like what you're into. Like, there didn't seem to be a competitive streak in you.
I don't know. I mean, I was always competitive, but I mean, it'd be if you had the fastest car, the fastest dirt bike, the nicest dirt bike, and then the nicest Harley, and then the fastest Harley. And then when Harleys wouldn't fast no more, I bought a Boss Hoss with 600 horsepower with a big old 502 big block Chevy on it. I had to have the baddest of the bad in anything I did.
So it's like if you're going to invest time into it, then it's going to be the best.
Yeah, I go all in, you know, and you either love that or hate that, you know. And I mean, and you know, when I did it in motorcycles, I'm not kidding you. It was on my anniversary at Sturgis. I bought a $75,000 motorcycle that had a 502 big block Chevy on it and 600 horsepower, fastest fucking thing you ever seen. But I was like, that the baddest son of a bitch up here? And the guy's like, oh yeah. I was like, I'll take it. You know, I mean, I just, you know, I just did dumb shit, you know, and I liked power. I was the same way with cars, you know. It's like, I didn't care what it looked like, but I was like, is it the fastest? You know, can you put a bigger motor in it? You know, it was just always a little bit of competitiveness there, I guess, you know. And with friends, we'd ride bikes. She wanted to be the fastest. I mean, I don't know. It just always did. But when I got into barbecue, I wanted a nice pit. And I was like, you know, I want to look cool. You know, it drove me crazy that my first trailer was all I could afford and it was shitty. Drove me crazy. I kept telling my ex-wife, I was like, you know, if I work some more overtime, I get a nicer trailer. I can do this. I can do this. And it was just, she's like, who cares? And I was like, I do.
Like, you cared for you. You didn't care that, you know, somebody might be talking shit down the street.
No, I wanted it. I was always that way. I just wanted nice stuff. You know, I grew up and didn't have nice clothes, but I was the guy that always wanted my kids to have anything they ever needed. Not necessarily what they wanted, but what they needed. Because I didn't grow up, we grew up poor as a motherfucker. You know, and I was like, you know, whatever, you know, I was always going to work. I mean, I worked, and my ex-wife understood it now, but I mean, it was always problems in our marriage that, I mean, I would work 120 hours a week, you know, literally. I mean, overtime didn't matter. I'd go into the packing house on the weekend and we'd pull 48 hours straight.
Wow.
You know, you'd go there and your energy drinks and everything working all night. And, you know, you'd come out and then you'd sleep all day on Monday. You know, you just sleep through the whole day. I did it for years and years and years, you know, and it was just like, I got to get more, got to get more. I want to buy a new 4-wheeler so we can go on vacation, to go do this. And I wanted to, I wanted my kids to have nice clothes, things that I didn't have. Not that they needed it. It was just, I just always wanted them to have better, which looking back probably would have been better to spend more time with them. It's just, and as I got older and we got into the restaurants, it was a good thing because I was allowed to spend more time with them then, but back then I was just always super competitive, and getting back to like Rod's classes, when he was like, you need to do your own class. And I was like, fuck, I've spent so much time taking what I learned from you and making it do my own thing. I was like, I don't want to tell it, and Rod's like, it's just what you got to think about. Well, it just got so expensive to compete. There's not a ton of money to return on it. It takes a lot of money if you're going to do it hard.
Yep.
We went out that year in 13. I think we did 10 or 12 or whatever it was, and the next year I told Kim, I was like, well, I've saved an extra week of vacation that I can roll over. I already got a few weeks. I was like, I want to cook more, so we went out and cooked. I think 2014, maybe 15, 17 contests or something like that. But like our first 7 or 8 were mostly first and second place. I mean, we come out and we're kicking the shit out of people, and I was like, now we're on to something, and that's the year that True Bud, and those guys, them guys were going at it hard. Them and Donnie Bray, those were just the baddest fucking dudes on the planet, True Bud and Donnie Bray, you can't, great guys, good friends of mine. I see Donnie at Sturgis and shit now, but it's just good dudes. But they were badasses, in 2013 and 14, they were the baddest motherfuckers out there, and I was just like, but I was looking, I'm a numbers guy, and I'm doing it in my head and I'm looking, you look at my average score and I'm averaging more than these guys. You look at the calls per contest, I'm doing better than these guys. I finished like 7th in the country, but on like 14 or 15 cooks, and I had 7 grands.
Yeah.
They're running I had 30, 7 grands,
30, 40 cooks. Probably.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm kicking the shit out of these guys. If you look at the numbers, I was like, numbers wise, I'm the best in the country, and I mean, I was stats guys. Now and I mean, I'm just looking at it going, if I could cook 30, I could win team of the year, and I mean, I went to that KCBS banquet and everyone there was a lot of guys. I remember talking to Q out and some of those guys, and they're like, what you did this year is fucking unbelievable. He was like, you've cooked a third of what these guys did and won half as much. He's like, it's unbelievable. And I was like, yeah, fucking sucks being 7th. I'm like that, that sucks, or 6th or 7th overall. And they're like, dude, that's like big time, and back then there was a lot of really good cooks and a lot of competitions and big money, that was kind of your prime of shit going on. And I was just like, yeah, but I was like, I want to win team of the year. I was at the KCBS banquet and Donnie Bray said, man, he goes, is that what you really want? He's like, you just got to cook more. And I was like, yeah, I said, I'm going to win that fucker next year. And then we went, got invited to King of the Smoker. Sterling gave us invited us because he's like, your batting average.
Yeah.
He's like, and what you've done, the first contest that year we came out and cooked after winning or reserving the Royal was Qualls', you come down and DJ'd that thing.
Yep.
Hosted the Buffalo Run. We won that fucker. And then turned around the second day and reserved it, and I mean, there's some heavy hitters at that thing, you had all the big nugs there, yep. And I mean, I think it kind of opened everybody up to like, holy shit, who is this guy? It's not just luck. And I don't think I was ever the best cook, but I don't know anybody in barbecue that worked harder than me. I'd work a full-time job and I would trim meat till fucking midnight every night. I'd hit every store to sort meat. I would, make sauces the same night of the week. Nobody outworked me. And I learned that as a young man, my grandpa taught me. He's like, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah.
You create your own luck by how hard you work. And I still believe that to this day, and I worked super hard. I was like, there'll be better cooks than me, but I was like, nobody will outwork me.
So do you go out?
I always thought that was it.
Do you go out and cook 30 or 15 more contests the next year then to get to 30, 40?
Yeah. In 15. So we were coming back from King of the Smoker and Kim's like, were you super happy with your year? You got invited to King of the Smoker. I was like, no. And she's like, really? And I was like, fuck no. We were driving home and I was like, we could be team of the year if we could cook more. I was like, I truly fucking think we could.
Did she like doing it?
She's like, well, not really. I mean, she liked going to King of the Smoker and the Jack and things like that. But I told her, I was like, I really want to go after team of the year. And she's like, well, what would that take? And I was like, I need to cook at least 30 times minimum. I was like 35, maybe.
Yeah.
I was like, and I just told her, I was like, Donnie and True Bud, I was like, those fuckers are hard to beat. And I was like, they're good teams and they're out there. And I said, these guys are going to go do it. And I mean, I was like, they got more money than we got. I was like, which means they got more time to go do it. I was like, I have to work to get overtime to afford to do this. I mean, a $200 brisket was a big thing. I mean, it was just a big deal. I was just like, to do this. And I was like, without hurting my family, I have to work more to do this. And I had it figured out. I went through work and I sat down with my boss and I'm like, all right, I want to cook these contests, and he's like, okay, what's that going to take? And I was like, to get to this one, it's this many hours. I would need to leave at 1:00 on Friday. I would need to leave. I need off on Friday for this one. I went through and we figured it out. And it's like, I have enough time. If I do that, I could cook 30 or whatever it was. I had a schedule figured out. Like I need to take off work at 1:00 this time and I need off this day on this one. Oh shit. If we do the Royal, we got to leave on a Wednesday. It's like, ooh, that's going to kill me. That's 3 days of vacation and trading days with guys I worked with to do it, to make it work. And I told Kim and I said it on your show. I was like, I'm fucking going to go after Team of the Year. I mean, and that is the dumbest fucking thing to ever just call. I mean, that's, it's just dumb because you kind of put a target on your back. You're not just flying under the radar. And it rubbed fucking people the wrong way that had done it a long time. And I didn't give a fuck. I didn't care. I mean, I was confident in myself. I always have been. No disrespect to anybody, but I felt like if I did it my way and I worked hard, there's no reason I wouldn't. If you looked at the numbers, statistically, I'm the greatest cook of all time, statistically. People have more wins, but they cook twice as much.
Yeah.
Numbers to me was all that mattered. It's like, I don't want to cook 500 fucking contests if I could do it in 200. I just don't. Why? It just ain't no sense in doing it. And I wanted to do it my way. And statistically, I thought we were the best of all time to do it if you look at the numbers. And I mean, there's some great cooks, but I wanted Team of the Year once. And we went out and we succeeded and did it. I don't even know how many we won that year, 12 of them or something like that, I don't know the numbers. It was a lot, but we had a hell of a year and did it. And I would really thought about doing it again in 16. I just didn't have the vacation. I didn't, to do it in 15, I saved vacation in 14 to roll over extra time. So I really couldn't do it in 16. We did some, but I couldn't cook the schedule I wanted to. I ended up having knee surgery. I tore my knee out New Year's Day, had knee surgery. Shit, I did several contests on that. That's the only reason I could cook that many, because I was off work because I was in a damn knee brace and I was still going out and cooking, in a knee brace, finding somebody at the contest to help run boxes. It was fucking miserable. Then my knee would be swelled up. I'd have to come back and have it drained. It was, they were like, what the hell would you do? And I was like, I don't know. It was just a rough weekend. I'm out trying to stand there and cook. God, I was in so much pain, but and I think we still wound up like 5th or something in the country that year. And I mean, I was just fucked up and I just couldn't do it. And it rubbed me wrong that I got so many people in there, people that come to my class and everything. And they were like, it's kind of a down year for you, huh? And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, and they're like, well, go from number 1 down to this. And I think 4th, 5th, I don't know. And I was like, well, fuck, I had knee surgery. I mean, ACL, MCL, meniscus, I did it all. And I mean, I was just like, I didn't have the vacation time. So then I saved up that vacation and I told Kim, she was the only one I told. I didn't tell everybody that. And I said, I'm going to go out next year. I said, I'll win more fucking contests than anybody has. I said, I'm only going to cook max points because my first year I cooked it about screwed me. I didn't understand that shit. And I'm looking going, I got 3 more wins and quals. How the fuck is he right there with me on points? I didn't understand the shit.
Yep.
And then I talked to guys and they're like, dude, you've got to make sure you hit these and do this. And I'm like, gotcha. So the bad thing was in 2017, when I went to go do it again, I drove by contests with more money that didn't have as many teams that you're sitting there going, shit, I need that money. I mean, you felt like it was easier to win, and then you're driving by one that's 3 hours from your house to go 20 hours, to one, but it had 50 teams. And I was like, I just need the fucking points. I'm not getting down to this end of the year shit, trying to find out where somebody's cooking to do it. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. We maxed out the points that year in like fucking July.
Yeah, I remember that.
We did it like in July, and we were going to let off. And I didn't lie to Kim, but wasn't super truthful. She's like, can you stop now? And I was like, oh no. I was like, people Tim's only 5 points behind me, which was not a lie, but he was like 4 contests behind me because mine were max points. He was giving them up, and that he would have had to win several more. And that year, the only thing that bothered me that whole year was I felt like Tim really got overlooked, because he didn't win it. And truthfully, that was probably one of the best years of barbecue anybody's had. He finished 1 point behind me, but we had like 3 more max point GCs just in reserve, for tiebreakers too. But I mean, that dude cooked a fucking hell of a year. We went down head to head. I won one day, he won the next day. I mean, he's a stud. He's one of the best cooks of all time. And I felt like he didn't get enough credit for that. It's like any other year, Tim was the man in that.
That's not how it works. I mean, there's every year in every sport, somebody was, so great or somebody gets overlooked. But the fact of the matter is you were just the elite of the class.
Yeah. I mean, and I went after it super hard that year. I mean, and Kim was the only one I told. I told her, I said, I will max it out. That never been done. And I had put down and I told her, I was like, I'll tell you what I'll do. And I wrote it down and I told her, I said, I'll tell you when you look at it. And I called her and I was like, go ahead and open it up and looked at it. And I put on there, I said, I will max this motherfucker out. And that was my goal for the year. I told nobody. I didn't sit there and say, oh, this is my goal. I did that shit in 15 because I was young and I was like, Jesus, way to put a target on your back. So I didn't do that. And I didn't tell anybody, but I told her, I was like, I will max this thing out. I was like, I will not get down to trying to get an extra point here and there. And we went at it super hard that year, and it was a great win. And after that, I just felt like I didn't care to even do barbecue anymore. Well, once I did that, I truly felt like I was done then. And it was a great year because that same year we won the Royal, and winning the Royal is probably the biggest moment in my life because of what it changed for us. And that is not because winning the Royal, they don't promote you like the Jack does or things like that. But that year was just, the ideal time to win the Royal, I guess. My friend and Jeff Staney, Joe's KC, Slaughterhouse 5, Jeff got elected. So we were sitting up front, with that, because Jeff was my first sponsor, really, my first major sponsor, and so we were sitting there, me and Rod and everybody, and I was so confident in that. And there's a video of it that I sound like a fucking asshole, but I mean, Rod looks back and, cause everybody thought so-and-so won and they called this guy third and so-and-so, and they called him second. Everyone's like, who the fuck won this? I had 180 chicken call. That's what we had. And I looked up and I said, I won this motherfucker. And I mean, I'm about to stand up, and I mean, I'm that confident I won this thing. And there's a video behind me and the guy shared it. And I was like, please do not post that video. I sound like an asshole. And I mean, we were just joking between us. And I was like, I won this motherfucker, and you could hear it plain as day on that deal. And like 10 seconds later, they called her name and I'm like, oh shit, we really did, but I'm sitting there going, I cooked my ass off today. I was like, how do I get one call, and winning that thing, I was still so mad that day that I took second in chicken with a 180 because I lost the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
That is all. I'm on stage going, how the fuck did we not get a wood trophy, for second play? We had a 180 chicken. I'm still mad about it, but I mean, you won the Royal, you should be happy, and I'm not. But at that moment, Dave Anderson got elected at the same time. And what's crazy is there's another video of us walking to the stage and I bump into my partner now. I've never met him. My partner in business now. I mean, he was there because of Famous Dave's. We walk right by each other, and he's like, congratulations. We went right by each other. Well, later on, Dave come over, met me, and he was like, I want to come take your cooking class and do all this. So Dave come and took my cooking class, and he told the people at Famous Dave's, is like, this fucking kid is like the real deal. This is the most intense class I ever went to, anything, and I was just, then they called and they're like, would you sell your name? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I would, I mean, I could go out and compete, all the time. Hell yes. I was like, this would free up all my financial troubles. And then I ended up not doing that, and I took some advice from Jeff.
Would you sell your name?
Like they had wanted to do restaurants with our name and have
like Clark Crew Barbecue.
Their theory was like a good, better, best, like Famous Dave's is better. And they wanted to do like some quick Q stuff with a Famous Dave's Day and have good, and then Famous Dave's be better. And then, like Clark Crew be like a premier barbecue that they wanted to do. And Jeff told me, he's like, you don't want to do that. He said, that's, Jeff Staney told me this. He's like, you don't want to do that. He said, you've earned your world championships and everything. He's like, you should do a restaurant if that's what you want to do. So we talked to Dave and Anderson and everything. And at the time, I didn't know who these other people I was talking to. At the time, I was still under the impression that Dave Anderson owned Famous Dave's. I didn't understand he didn't own any of it.
Yeah.
I thought Dave Anderson was Famous Dave's. And to me, to this day, if you think of Famous Dave's, you think of Dave Anderson, right? I didn't understand that he didn't own the company anymore. He was just, he's the Colonel Sanders of it. He just, goes around and sees people and gets paid to be that guy.
Yep.
I would, so I didn't know that. And he's like, this CEO, which his name was Jeff Corelli, he's like, he's a great guy. I believe in him. Talk to this guy. And we talked to him. He ended up flying down to Oklahoma City and brought Gio with him, who was the COO of the time. And they were like, let's look at doing this. And then we started looking at, okay, we'll make it look like a Famous Dave's and we'll do it this way. And then I was like, man, that's just not what I'm feeling. I want a different vibe, and we just kind of rolled, looked at buildings and went from small to big and this and all in. And we were going to spend $2 million and ended up spending $4 million, and it just snowballed. And it worked. We did it just worked. The restaurant worked from day one. And it was just, for a guy that had never been in the restaurants, but again, nobody outworked me. I worked there all night long. I slept in my truck. I did everything, I'd go home to take a shower, change clothes, go back. I don't know how many nights I spent, trying to catch an hour nap in the booth out front. I did it. I just worked so hard, at it because I didn't want to fail. When we opened up right before COVID, then COVID happened and everything. And I thought this is how I lose it all. I had saved so much money up from competing in classes I hadn't spent any of that. I'd saved it. And I'm like, this is what's going to make me go broke, some pandemic, and you hadn't been in business long enough to really qualify for anything. It was just a bad deal. And I was like, holy shit, I'm going to lose it all. But, we started doing to-go. I didn't do to-go when I first opened and figured it out. And if you look back at it now, the pandemic was a horrible thing. But if it wasn't for that pandemic, I don't know if Clark Crew Barbecue would ever made it.
Wow.
The way we were doing it was so inefficient. You just can't survive cooking all night and just doing everything the way I was, and trying to do it all myself. And when we wheeled that back and we had to, kind of just refocus, it's like, all right. So then I was just running the smokehouse. My general manager of Tulsa, he's been with me from day one too, Jeremy. At the time, he was my assistant general manager. Well, at the time, he was a front of the house manager, but that's what made him the assistant general manager was COVID. I was just like, this guy is a beast. Jeremy ran the whole line. He was up there cutting all the meat. I was in the smokehouse cooking everything. We had a couple to-go people putting it out. And we were cranking out, $70,000, $80,000 worth of food and to-go. In a week, and people are like, this is unbelievable what you're doing. We got people just lined up, we can't get enough people to take at the cars, but it just showed us how to do it. It allowed us to slow down and get better people, because when I started, it was hard to hire good help. If you're looking at a business and you'd never heard of me, in a town, I never owned a restaurant, and you'd had to look up Clark Crew Barbecue. He's a competition guy. And I offered you a job. Are you going to quit your job at Christmas time to go work for a new thing and hope it works? Probably not.
Yeah.
I had two general managers apply, hired them both. One was a general manager and the other one was an assistant general manager, so I hired them both, and neither one of them worked out. They weren't good, but I didn't have, a lot of people to pick from. And then when COVID happened, I had stacks. People had seen how busy we were. We were the busiest thing in town, in all of Oklahoma City by far. And everyone was like, this is crazy. We had people lining up to pick up to-goes at 9 a.m. It was just crazy. And then, the first day we opened that thing, Greg, I was in the smokehouse going, and all these people are lining up at like 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, these fucking people, we don't do breakfast. I'm outside. I go, hey, we don't open till 11. And they're like, we know. And I'm like, I walked back in the smokehouse and I told the guys, like, we are fucked, like big time. Like we don't got enough food. And the line went around both sides of the restaurant.
Wow.
Because most barbecue restaurants, if you look at them, they're most counter serve. You walk up, you got to get in line to get there.
Yeah.
That wasn't how I built this restaurant. I hated that about barbecue. I was like, I want to go in and sit down like a regular restaurant and order food. And everyone's like, well, that's not really what you're doing. I was like, well, Famous Dave's does it. You know, I mean, they have it. Why the hell couldn't I? I was just want to do an elevated menu. I want to, you know, some nicer stuff. I want to do appetizers. I want to do my grandma's deviled eggs. I want to do this. I wanted to do all these things. And people are like, well, you know, nobody does that. And I was like, well, why? Why don't they? You know, I mean, Darren had a big restaurant that I'd ate at a bunch of times, but you walk up and order, go sit down, you know, and I was just like, I don't want that. I want to sell people beer. I want them to come sit down, hang out. And everyone's like, well, you know, do those booths. And I was like, I want the most comfy booths you can find. I want this to be a date night place. Huh. You know, I built the smokehouse out front, put glass in it where you could see it, but it's a separate building that's attached through a fire door. And I was like, I don't want my restaurant smoky. I mean, I want you to see it outside. I want you to smell it outside, but I don't want the inside of my restaurant smoky. And everyone's like, well, that's barbecue. I was like, no, nobody dressed up in nice clothes wants to come eat at a place like that.
Yeah.
It's like nobody, you know, it's just not going to happen. This isn't Texas. You know, I was like, it's not what I want. I mean, I painted my walls white. I mean, light gray and white, used light colors, very bright restaurant, which is not like barbecue. And I've always been into collecting signs and oil cans and stuff. And I was originally going to do like decor like that. And I was like, you know what, you know, only thing we have going for us is our trophies, right? I mean, we won trophies and done this stuff. I was like, let's build some trophy cases. So we built trophy cases in there and put trophies in there. And I kind of got that from like Darren. I was like, he's got to buy glass where nobody can break them and do this. I was like, let's do that. So we changed the design and did that. And it just kept evolving and evolving where it's a really cool place, but you know, it's very unique. I mean, there's not a lot of places like that. I mean, it's a very nice restaurant, but I mean, you know, it's a date night place, and now it's just unbelievably busy. To think of selling over $10 million in barbecue out of one thing is mind blowing.
Wow.
You know, when we designed it, my goal was $4 million. You know, I was, and I literally was like, well, what's the busiest Famous Dave's do? And they would say this, and I was like, well, we'll do that. I mean, I'll do every bit of that. I never dreamed you would do more than double that, ever. Never dreamed that. You know, but when COVID happened, I got a good team, because then you had all kinds of people applying. I mean, I had hundreds of general managers because places were closing. Yep. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of places I really liked closed. And one of them was a restaurant that halfway between Dodge City, Kansas and Oklahoma City, like almost exactly in the middle, Woodward, Kansas. There's a restaurant there that I lived called Big Dan's Steakhouse. And it had a big parking lot. When you're pulling a competition trailer, you're trying to, you know, you're looking at Google Maps. Can we get our trailer in there? Can we park there? You know, and this place was great. Had like a freaking 20-foot long salad bar that I just loved. I'm a sucker for a salad bar. And that restaurant is the reason I put a salad bar in mine. We had to take it out during COVID, but that reason I put it in because of that place. I was like, I want a salad bar like that guy's got. Great food and all this on it. And I seen this application come across, and I was looking at it and I was reading it, and I didn't know how to go through these. I never hired people like this. I hired people in the oil field, but they told you who to hire. You're like, you know, screen these 3 people. You know, you had somebody screen them and do it. Well, I'm going through 100 of them. And I'm like, all right, I laid them out on 2 tables. I'm like, places I've heard of, places I haven't heard of, places I like, you know, and I mean, I'm just narrowing them down, and I go through there, and like the third one I flipped through is Big Dan's Steakhouse. And I was like, is that place in Woodward? I'm looking at it, and I was like, yeah, Dan Parsons. I'm, you know, looking it up on Facebook, and I was like, shit, I think this is the guy that owns that thing. You know, so I go through it, and when he had to close it down and everything.
Oh no.
I called this guy, he come in, interviewed him, I hired him on the spot. And I was like, look, I'll tell you right now, I don't know a fucking thing about running a restaurant. I was like, I can cook good barbecue. I need somebody to run this shit up here because it's driving me crazy. And the dude worked for me for 5 years and had an opportunity to move back home, take care of his dad, and had a good job barbecuing back there. Left us a few months ago. Now he wants to come back, you know, but he was very instrumental in my business. I mean, Clark Crew wouldn't be what it was without him. I didn't know anything about running it. And the way Famous Dave's ran theirs just didn't work how I ran mine. So unfortunately, we had to part ways. I ended up buying back from them. I'm just like, look, this just isn't working. I mean, they were in the process of selling Famous Dave's again to a great big company that bought it all. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of that. You know, I don't want some company telling me I can't wear camo shorts every day. Or I was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, I do what I want, you know, and nobody's going to tell me different, you know, and then my partner, Gio, he reached out to me. He's like, what if we buy that? And he goes, we lump this all together and you own part of all these sports bars too. He's like, you're not just tied to one restaurant. He goes, think about having 30 some restaurants. And I was like, well, I don't have time to do 30 restaurants. He's like, we'll do that. We'll provide for you whatever you need. You need us to do the books. You need us to help with purchasing. You need us to do HR, payroll. That's the things we'll do. And I was like, well, that's all the shit that I hate. You know, I was like, I just want to focus on trying to run the restaurant.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, we just want you to do your thing and we'll do whatever we can to make it, you know, you just tell us. And I was like, all right. So we head out around, me and my wife, Jamie, we flew out there and looked at them. We went and ate at a few of them. And I was like, these are cool. You know, and I didn't tell Gio I was out there early because I wanted to get I don't want him calling these places saying Travis is going to be in. You know,
right.
we landed and rented a car and we're like, all right, let's go find this one. So we went to one and then went to another one and went to another one. And I'm like, this shit's good. I was like, I like it. You know, I like what they got here. I like this store better than this one. And then met with Gio and you know, I just wanted to do my own due diligence. And I was like, look, I think I want to do this. And we figured it out. And it was easy to do because he's actually who wrote my deal with Famous Dave's. And I'll always be very, very thankful for Famous Dave's. I mean, I never want it to be a bad thing. If it wasn't for them, I would never have a restaurant. And it's kind of like KCBS. I think they are fucking up major anymore. But if it wasn't for KCBS, I wouldn't be where I am.
Sure.
And I will burn to the stake at agreeing to that. I mean, it's just, I think that if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am. I'd still be an electrician. You know, so I mean, KCBS gave me a platform to do something special, and hard work got me to a point to where we were acknowledged and had the ability to do something else. And that hard work made it, you know, where you could do something else. And again, we went from one restaurant to now we have 37 restaurants.
Wow.
You know, we were able to open up another Clark Crew. We just opened up another Green Turtle Sports Bar in Tampa, Florida this weekend. And we're working on one in Norman, Oklahoma. I want to start bringing them to the Midwest. I was like, they're so fucking good. I love what they do. I mean, they have a good team and great deal, great history. They started in 76. So we're coming up on 50 years. They've been around. Fuck, I'm not even that old. I wasn't born till 80.
Yep.
You know, it's just a great brand, you know, so it's just something I want to be a part of. And we've grown them and done really well. And Gio's got, you know, he just does so fucking good at the things I hate. You know, he can look at, you know, the deals on buildings and structures. Fuck, I'd sign something that would be horrible. And he's like, no, fuck those people. This is what you do. You know, he's just a beast at that. You know, he came up in the hedge funds and knew all that stuff. And it really works great. You know, he allows me to do my thing. And he's like, you need to focus on doing what makes you special in your place. Let me do this shit. You know, and it's just been a simple, so simple, but it just works. You know, and I mean, I love these sports bars. I can't wait to start bringing them out here because when out here in the Midwest, when somebody says a sports bar out here in Oklahoma, instantly Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what everybody thinks. And these are just so much better. You know, I mean, they're just a nicer, you know, it's this one we're putting in, Greg, has 62 TVs, big TVs,
wow.
Ticker tape running around the restaurant in there for scores. It's just, they're just awesome, you know, and I like the food. I like the menu. We're going to make some changes for out here, you know, where, you know, the seafood, a little less of it out here, you know, and a steak sandwich and just, you know, some changes to tailor it to where we are. I'm going to put a smoker in this one. You know, I was like, look, I mean, we do our things. We started doing Clark Crew wings in them and it's very popular, but it's just using our rub on them, you know, and I was like, look out here, I want to do smoked wings, you know, so we're putting a smoker in to kind of start tying that. We're probably going to have some smoked pork. I don't plan to do brisket or ribs or nothing like that. You know, I want to keep it simple where they can perform it very well all the time. But I want to put our own spin on it out here, and I'm excited to do it. And it's just amazing what it's done, you know. And I mean, I can be so mad at KCBS for what they've allowed it to become, but you know, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for that. I mean, I wouldn't be, you know, fuck, I wouldn't have never done an interview with you ever if it wasn't for them, you know. And I mean, it's amazing if you look back at what it is. It's just sad to see what it's become. You know, but it's just, I can't let that hold me back. You know, we have made the decision. I was like, I don't care. And it got down to now it's like, I don't have time to go cook a contest like that. If I do, it takes away from what I want to be my legacy. I like that competition was a great part of it. I wish I could say I miss it, but I don't have time to miss it. I'm so damn busy, and you're still doing barbecue all the time. And when we go on a trip to Texas, we're still eating barbecue every time, doing market research on who does what. And I'm always doing it. And I've stayed busy with it. So I think that's allowed me to not miss it. and just focusing on that. And then it's just become my life. And it's like, look, competition at the end of the day, my kids got tired of it because we pushed them so hard on it. My grandkids, that's not something they're going to be into. It's like, but I want to build a legacy, a brand, that we can be proud of forever. I was like, if I die tomorrow, this restaurant keeps going. If I was just competing and I died, the team's over.
Yeah.
I did a ton of it myself, and that's more important to me to build a legacy. I would have never got back into it when I quit in 2018 if it wasn't for me meeting my new wife, Jamie, and she was like, I think it would be fun to go do one and do this. And I was like, fuck, it's a lot of work, and I still had my trailer and everything, and I still have it to this day. My first porch trailer, I still have, and my pit that I won my second team of the year on and everything, still on it. I still have it all. I probably won't ever sell it. But so I was like, we can do it. We'll go do a couple. And that first fucking time we went and cooked was KCBS World Invitational because we were still qualified. We went and cooked that thing, and we win brisket and we win pork and we reserve it and we do all this shit at it. And she's like, so these are world championships? I was like, yeah, you got 2 of them, a pork and brisket this weekend. She's like, well, this ain't hard. I'm like, look, we hadn't cooked in 18 months. I promise you, this is not how this shit goes. I was like, this is way fucking harder than what we just, it takes so much luck. But I mean, our food was still good. And that kind of lit a fire in me. And I was like, all right, this is fun. But I was like, if we're going to cook, I'm not chasing points. I was like, I want this. If we're going to do it, I want to go cook where we want to cook. And we went and, did contests I'd never done. We took 2 weeks and went up into Wyoming and cooked, and then went over and cooked in South Dakota. And
it sounds very Darren Worthy of you, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, we started doing things. I was like, I want to go cook where we wanted to cook. So we went to just different places we hadn't and did some. Still did the ones that I love, like my hometown contest and those. But it was just, I had so much more fun then because you enjoyed it. But I wasn't on my, when I competed before, I wasn't fun. People would be like, you want to go to dinner? I'd be like, I can't. I have to inject pork at that time. Well, fuck, I'd go to, when we started doing it again, I'd go cook, and I mean, there'd be people like, you want to go to dinner? I'm like, sure. Well, then I'm injected at midnight, but I didn't care like I used to. It just didn't mean that much to me. I mean, my restaurant, I'd be in there making sure my order was right. When I should be trimming chicken, I'd be like, I got to get the order and make sure this is right. That was what was my priority. And I knew it and I could feel it. And we still did really good and won a bunch of contests together. I think me and her won 18 or 20 of them over the next couple of years or whatever it was, or a few years that we did it. We did really good, but just, we're never going to be running in the points, like that. And that bothered me. I told her, I was like, I don't like cooking 10 or 12, even though if you win 3 or 4, I was like, you could win one every 3 or 4 contests you cook. That's still great. But I was like, it doesn't mean anything. I was like, it doesn't mean anything. You're still ranked fucking 30th if you only win 4, even though you only cooked, 12. I was like, I don't give a shit. I mean, it was kind of one of those, I told her, I was like,
you can't do it.
If I'm not going to do it. No. I couldn't. Right. I was just like, look, if we're going to do it, I want to fucking do it hard.
Yeah.
And I told her, I was like, we're either going to do fucking 50 or we're going to do none. And she's like, I am not doing 50. And I said, then we're not doing none.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to do any. I mean, I'm just not going to do it. And it just, I didn't have it in me. I mean, I could watch these guys winning and you'd see people post boxes and you're like, Jesus, that shit's winning. It was painful for me to watch, and then you try their food and you're like, oh my God. And it is amazing how fast it started changing, how people are saucing brisket, which just pained me to do. We came out when we started cooking and I told her, I was like, look, these guys are saucing. And I was like, she tried my brisket the first time and she's like, oh my God, that's unbelievable. And I was like, sad thing is, I was like, if you want to win, we'd have to sauce this fucking thing. And she's like, are you serious? And I'm like, I'm telling you, you'd have to sauce it. So, I mean, I sauced it and she's like, I don't like it. I was like, I don't either, but I was like, it'll win.
It ain't for you.
This will score. and then we turned it in and that fucker won at the KCBS Invitational, first place brisket. And she was like, that thing was so much better before. And I was like, nobody cares about that anymore.
Yeah.
I was like,
you don't cook competitions for you, honey.
No. And that's why I try to tell her, I was like, most of the food I cook isn't what I want. And you have to explain that to people in restaurants every day. They're all sitting there saying that. They're like, oh, is this your comp food? I'm like, fuck, no.
Yeah.
I said, my comp food would be injected, and before I brought it to your table, I'd dump MSG on that sumbitch. It's not what you want to eat, I promise you.
Yeah. Wow. But, do you have an exit strategy out of the restaurant business at this point or no?
the one thing I've learned in restaurants you can be super successful in them. And the way we're set up, you put your money right back in, you pay yourself enough to do it and you put back in. I told her, I was like, if you ever want to retire, just truly have fuck you money to retire, just, you got to sell them.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could ever do that. We named it Clark Crew. It's so passionate for that.
You don't get rid of shit, Travis. This is what I've come to learn about you. You keep your first pit. You keep Rod's pit. You got your porch trailer pit. It's zero contest for 50
truck.
Contest. You're not selling the restaurant.
I've got trucks and trailers. I've got so many pickups and cars. I'm a hoarder. I am. I still got my first pits. I got my first trailers. I got them all. My Dodge pickup. I remember when I bought that brand new Ford Team of the Year to make a run. I bought it in 2015. At the end of 2014, I bought a brand new Dodge pickup. First trip it took was to the King of the Smoker, but I was gearing up to go cook a lot. I was like, I bought a porch trailer and a brand new truck to do it. I was like, I'm going after it. I still have them both. I bought new ones since, but I still have the old ones. I don't know. I'm bad about it. But, I at some point we do want to take our sports bars and either sell them or go public with them or something. And that will be our retirement plan. I don't think we could ever get rid of Clark Crew. I'll probably be 70 years old walking through that damn thing. I mean, I love it. I have a great team that can run it. I could go on vacation now. I go to Sturgis now for a week and, I can just text, hey, how's it going? It's going great. I have a good team that at the point now, my smokehouse guys they can do better than I can. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're great. They're just good guys. They know it all. I mean, and you get fortunate enough, you have a good team that we can do it. But when there's a problem, I'm still the one that, to figure it out, to do it. And I'm coming up with new things and doing that. And, I'm a great manager of walking in and be like, there's a scratch on that wall, call the painter, get him in here tomorrow. It's just my eye for detail that you had in boxes to make them look good rolls over into my restaurant. That thing looks as good today as it did 6 years ago when I built it, and that thing runs in thousands and thousands of people a week. But I got a painter that'll come in once a month and touch stuff up, and it's like, hey, the vents are getting dirty. Make sure they pull them down tonight and clean those. I'm just the eye for detail just to keep the place like it is. And I'm trying the food in there and I'm like, hey, I don't think we got enough 5XL in the corn. I don't think this is enough. And, and I got a great kitchen manager. It's like, I'm on it, and he's checking it. And I mean, I find stuff every day, every day you're in there, and I think that's what a lot of restaurants lose is that passion of trying to be good. And I mean, that's always been our goal. I couldn't do this and not try to be the best at it. I wouldn't do it. If somebody came and told me and was like, you have to shut this down or cheapen your food up, I would shut it down. I would 100%.
Travis Clark
100%.
is sharing everything about Travis Clark here. Look, Trav, we've known each other a long time. You've given great interviews to the show, which I certainly appreciate. And to stay connected after this long, some of my longest relationships outside of my wife have been in the competition barbecue world, and few have been, at all, never meeting in person. It's always, doing this virtually.
So many good people. There's so many good people in barbecue. A lot of them I still talk to this day. There's a lot of good people, Blaine and Brad. I talk to them once in a while. When Blaine had a water leak in his restaurant, I text him that fucking day I heard about it. I was like, look, if you need my catering trailer, I was like, we have a vending trailer. I said, I'll drag that fucker up there. That's just, you meet people that you would do that for, and I wouldn't do that for people in my family. There's a bunch of people I wouldn't do that for.
Yep. Appreciate you coming on and, sharing everything. Welcome
Absolutely.
into the Guest Hall of Fame. You'll get your spoils here as soon as I get them made, and continued success.
I probably will retire. I probably hang it up now. That's probably
what else is right? I mean, this is the crowning achievement in life.
I'll probably call my partner after this and be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I've done it all. I'm now in this. It's over.
Well, you deserve the retirement if you do it. Otherwise, continued success in all the endeavors, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
All right. Take care, Travis.
See.
There he is. 2025 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer, Travis Clark, Clark Crew Barbecue, and Green Turtle Sports Bars. Sounds like some are going out to Oklahoma. He mentioned there was one in Tampa. I might be going to Tampa here pretty soon, actually, so I'll have to get the particulars on that and check it out. What a wide-ranging interview. That's why we love the... Let's try this. That's why we love the origin stories. Hour and 14 minutes of Travis Clark breaking it down. Next week, I'll get to that here in a second. All the way back in the first hour, amidst some technical issues, Amanda McAuliffe talking about the green cigar, McAuliffeCigars.com, MICALLEF, McAuliffeCigars.com. And then right from the rip, top of the second hour, Travis Clark bringing us all the way to 15 past the new hour. Clark Crew Barbecue 2025 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. Next week, back-to-back Hall of Fame interviews. 9 o'clock hour, Andy Husbands. 10 o'clock hour, Emily Detweiler, if you can believe it. Week after that, which will be the third Tuesday of the month, we will do a first hour Wes Wright origin story, and then we just need to line up Melissa Cooks. It could be the quickest we ever do the 5 origin stories for a Barbecue Hall of Fame class, I can tell you that. So, how do I always leave you? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. And until next Tuesday, which will be all Hall of Fame all the time, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe, saying, Shalom!
Hi, this is Austin Parsons, Pitmaster with Smoky Mountain Q in Nashville, Tennessee, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.